How goes it all? Welcome back to Patterson L Properties. Hopefully, you guys having a great and exceptional day. All right, today we go to the beautiful state of Florida. So, what is this? Is an interesting article that slash subject matter family that I read the other day. Because for the last decade, specifically during the 2020 lockdown pandemic around the United States and across the world, the state of Florida was an amazing place for rich people and everyday working people, specifically remote workers, to move to the state of Florida because Florida is not known for having the best economy. That's why it was always known for a place for either rich people or retirees and whatnot. People in between, it's not really meant for unless somebody passed down real estate. Or, like I said, there was once upon a time when the price of rents and homes were actually reasonable in the state of Florida, unlike it is today. But unlike it is around most of the United States of America. But anyways, I digress. I mean, hey, like I said, for the most part, the state of Florida offers great things like beautiful beaches, no income state taxes, no taxes on one's retirement because that's considered income. So it's a beautiful place for people to retire. However, and I have nothing against Florida. I'm not a big Floridian. When it comes to coastal beach states, I'd rather go to California. But I know California has egregious taxes, so it is what it is. But when it comes to living in the metropolitan areas, the areas that most people like to go to, i.e., Tampa Bay, Florida, Miami, Orlando, those specific cities, a good portion of those residential neighborhoods have basically very costly homeowners associations, better known as HOAs. Another thing is that lots upon lots of Floridians have been stating that utility costs and healthcare, car insurance, and homeowners insurance costs are through the roof and are constantly going up in the state of Florida as well. It's been stated that Florida has become the California of the Deep South because of the current, cost of living. People started moving to Florida in large portions beginning in the late 1990s. That is back when housing was much more affordable compared to 2026. So, according to the article that I read the other day, Brian and Carol de la Hunty were among this cohort. Near the end of 2020, the couple from Long Island, New York, moved because a bunch of New Yorkers live in Florida and Californians moved to Hutchinson Island in Florida with the dream of living on the beach. Everybody loves the beach. I'm not that big a fan of it like that, but anyways. At that time, Florida was very much a seller's market. They stated, and I quote, when we moved here, it was like, well, if you like this, you better make a deal for today because we'll be gone tomorrow. But a lot has changed since 2020. Less than 5 years after the De La Huntys moved south, Florida's housing market has seen a decline in demand, which has led to ballooning inventory, weakened sales, and a drop in home prices. Now, as De La Huntys tried to sell their home ahead of their move to nearby Fort Pierce, Florida, is anything but a seller's market. Plus, not to mention, lots upon lots of remote workers were forced to return to the office throughout the country, specifically in California, New York, and the DMV area, known as Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, after the lockdown of 2020 pandemic was over. So between Florida losing lots upon of their new residents and losing the next generation of local and up-and-coming Floridians because of the affordability crisis and a lack of good-paying career jobs, doesn't help matters much. The article also stated that, according to data from Redfin, home prices in Florida were down 2.2% in June 2025 when compared to the same price last year, and the decline is particularly bad in South Florida because that's the most expensive part of the state now. The Tampa Bay area is the second most expensive part, and Orlando is right behind them, and even other parts like Jacksonville and even Tallahassee is getting bad. I think eventually I'm going to have to talk about Texas because people are not talking about how Texas is becoming much more unaffordable, specifically Houston, Dallas, and Austin, Texas. Anyways, Palm Beach County leads in having the most active home listings, which is doubled compared to the inventory of River or St. Lucie counties. According to the Miami Association of Realtors, sales in Miami-Dade County dropped 20.2% in May 2025 when compared to the same price last year. Making matters worse, condo sales in Miami-Dade are down 25% over the same period. So, at the end of the day, family, South Florida is considered to be the most expensive, like I stated earlier, and yet has the most listings on the market. So, only time will tell when things change for the state of Florida's housing market. Places, because it's become a it's been a rich people's playground, but it's intensified when it comes to being a rich person's playground. I mean, Jeff Bezos is there in Miami. Like a Tony Robinson moved to Florida. I remember reading one of his books, and he talked about leaving California so we could save money in the state of, living in the state of Florida. I get it. For the tax incentives specifically for retirees and rich people. So the retirees are the ones who have, the main people the retirees that can afford Florida are the ones who have sold assets in other parts of the country. People who have multiple retirement packages, not just a 401k, but they have investments in various different aspects in various different ways, from annuities to individual retirement accounts to other investment brokerage accounts, even crypto accounts, things of that nature, bonds. So those are the retirees that can afford Florida. And of course, like I mentioned earlier about the rich people, Tony Robinson, Jeff Bezos, Grant Cardone, et cetera, and so forth. There's nothing wrong with it. Like I said, it's no hate or shade towards Florida. I'm not the biggest fan of Florida, but I'm not going to be a hater towards Florida either. Just because when I go to a state, it's got to be more to do than just the beach. I just got back there has to be more things to do than just look at the ocean and be on the beach, And plus, the summertime in California is way better than it is in Florida. That's just what it is. That's not me. Last time I went to Florida was actually last year, but it was in January, so the weather was decent. So they say the summers down there are atrocious. I've only been in Florida 3 times in my life. First time I went as a kid to Orlando, Florida. Second time was to Miami, Florida in 2015, and then 2025, because it was 10 years later, because I'm not impressed with that state, I went to Tampa Bay, Florida. So I've been to 3 parts of the state, and just didn't do it for me. So I'll leave it at that. But anyways, long story short, nothing against Florida, but I know with the housing market, the average house in Florida costs about $600,000 to $1 million now. Even for your house in the hood now, you're going to pay still, if you're lucky, $300,000, if you're lucky, and that's in the hood. So I leave it at that. But it's just one of those is what it is situations, family. So anyways, let me know what you think. If you've been to Florida, you live in Florida, you're Floridian, give me your comments. Let me know what you think. Don't forget, Patterson Property. We wholesale real estate in the DMV area and Reading, Pennsylvania, Harrisburg area. If you're a stock market investor, crypto investor, individual retirement account investor, don't forget to check out weeble-acornscrypto.com, Coinbase. All those platforms you'll be able to make money moves so you don't live broke like a fool. On that note, do the great 3 things, like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. Make money moves like you live broke like a fool, as they say in Spanish. Bienvenido a la vida. Welcome. Remember, it's 2026, so if you can't get fired if you own the company, it's time if you don't own something. Take care.